Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're putting on our investor hats and taking a deep dive into Amazon's big play in the AI chip game. This isn't just about cool new tech. This is about a calculated strategy to take on a giant, NVIDIA, and we're going to break down exactly how they plan to do it.
You know, this quote really nails it. NVIDIA is the undisputed king of the jungle right now, no question. But in this high-stakes game, even kings can get complacent, and that's exactly the opening Amazon is looking for. See, they're not trying to outmuscle NVIDIA head-to-head. No, their play is way more subtle. It's not about building a faster chip. It's about building a smarter, more cost-effective business model. And that could change everything.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the big picture, the AI chip gold rush. Then we'll get into Amazon's secret sauce, what I'm calling their TCO North Star. After that, we'll look at the hardware, the software, and their hidden cost advantages. And finally, we'll wrap it all up and ask the big question. Is this a real threat? All right, section 1. So let's just set the scene here. The demand for AI compute. I mean, it's not just growing, it's exploding. It's a genuine gold rush. And in this gold rush, one company, NVIDIA, is selling pretty much all the shovels. They've got the high-performance GPUs, and boy, did they command a high margin for them. They absolutely rule the market.
So if you're Amazon and you operate at, well, planetary scale, this is a huge, huge problem. Think about it from a risk perspective. You've got this massive cost center, and all of your future growth in AI is dependent on a single supplier. That's a 5-alarm fire from a strategic standpoint. It's not just an expense, it's a massive vulnerability. So what do? You build your own. You have to.
And that brings us to the absolute core of their playbook. This is the guiding principle, their North Star. See, Amazon isn't interested in a drag race with NVIDIA to see who has the fastest chip on paper. They're playing a completely different game. Their game is all about one metric, performance per total cost of ownership. And you really have to get this concept to understand Amazon's strategy. TCO, or total cost of ownership, isn't just the price tag on the chip. That's just the beginning. It's everything. It's the total, all-in cost, to get that chip running in a data center and making money. It's the financial lens they look through for every single decision. Okay, so what actually goes into that TCO calculation for Amazon? Well, you've got the obvious stuff, right? The chip cost, power, cooling, networking. But look at that last one, time to monetization. Now that is the killer app for a business like AWS. It's not just about cost, it's about speed. How fast can we plug this stuff in and start generating revenue? That's their real secret weapon. So how does this obsession with TCO actually show up in the hardware? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like Amazon Basics for AI chips. You know, it's not the fanciest, most high-end product on the market. It's not trying to be. It's designed to be good enough, super cost-effective, and built for one customer and one customer only, Amazon Web Services. And this table here really shows that pragmatic approach in action. They're not just throwing specs at the wall. Look at the upgrades from their last chip, Trainium 2. They doubled the performance, but only in a specific area, MXFP8, because that's what today's AI models actually use. They bumped up memory bandwidth. Why? To feed those giant models data faster. And they doubled the speed between the chips to get rid of bottlenecks. See? These aren't just numbers on a page. They're surgical, cost-conscious upgrades designed to get answers from their AI faster and cheaper. And it's not just the chips themselves. They're also completely changing how those chips talk to each other. They're moving to what's called a switched network. Now, without getting too in the weeds, the important thing to know is that this new design is way, way better for the new fancy AI models everyone's building, these so-called mixture of experts models. And it's no coincidence that this is exactly the kind of model their big partner, Anthropic, is famous for. Okay, this right here is a classic TCO move, a perfect example. NVIDIA? They're all about expensive, complex liquid cooling to squeeze out every last drop of performance. But what does Amazon do? They stick with good old-fashioned air cooling. Now, why would they do that? Simple, because they can roll it out way faster into their thousands of existing data centers without spending a fortune on new infrastructure. They are consciously trading a little bit of performance for a massive advantage in speed to market and lower upfront capital. That is a pure CFO-level decision. All right, so the hardware story is compelling, but any smart investor knows that hardware is only half the picture. The real reason NVIDIA is so dominant, their truly durable competitive advantage, is their software. It's called CUDA. And it's not just software, it's a fortress. It's a deep, wide moat that is incredibly difficult for developers to leave. So the billion-dollar question is, how on earth does Amazon plan to get across that moat? Well, it seems Amazon has learned a really important lesson from tech history. The strongest moats aren't built by one company's engineers. They're built by a massive global community of developers. So what's Amazon's countermove? They're not trying to build their own closed-off fortress to compete with NVIDIA's. No, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to build a powerful, open-source town square right next door. And this isn't some weekend project. This is a patient, multi-year plan. Step 1, they're open-sourcing all the key components for PyTorch, which is the most popular tool developers use for AI. That's the foundation. After that, they're going to open source the whole rest of the software stack. Look, this is a long game. They know they can't win overnight. The goal is to slowly, methodically create a viable open alternative that chips away at NVIDIA's gravitational pull. Okay, now we get to what I think is Amazon's real ace in the hole, their true unfair advantage. Because that TCO edge we've been talking about, it's not just about smart engineering. It's about a level of financial and supply chain muscle that basically no other company on the planet has. So get this. The sticker price that a supplier lists for a component, that is not what Amazon pays. Not even close. They use their unbelievable purchasing power to strike these really interesting deals. They tell a supplier, we'll buy tons of your stuff, and in return, you give us warrants, which is basically the right to buy your stock in the future at a cheap price. What does this do? It acts like a giant financial rebate, completely changing their cost structure. Let me give you a real-world example. They did a deal like this with a company called Astera Labs for some critical networking parts. Because of the stock warrants they got, it works out to an effective discount of around 23%. Just think about that. They are starting the race with a 23% cost advantage on key components before they even build the chip. It's baked right in. And it gets even crazier. They struck a deal for networking cables with a company called Credo. Now, listen to this. The value of the stock warrants they got back was actually more than what they had to spend on the cables in the first place. I mean, let that sink in. They were literally paid to take the components off Credo's hands. That's a level of financial power that is just staggering. So let's put it all together. What does this all mean for the AI chip war? Is Amazon a real challenger? Let's land the plane on this investment thesis. So here's the question you have to ask yourself as an investor. Can this good enough, cheap enough strategy, this relentless obsession with total cost of ownership, can it actually pose a real threat to a king like NVIDIA, who is all about pushing performance to the absolute limit, no matter the cost? And this really boils it all down. You have two completely different philosophies clashing here. In one corner, you have NVIDIA, the performance king. They sell premium, high-margin chips to everyone and lock them into their closed CUDA ecosystem. In the other corner, you have Amazon, the TCO challenger. They're building pragmatic, cost-effective solutions just for themselves, and they're trying to win the long game by building an open ecosystem. It's a classic battle. And really, that's the bottom line. The headlines are always going to scream about who has the fastest chip, but that's not the game Amazon is playing. They are making a very calculated long-term bet that in this war, the winner won't be the one with the fastest chip, but the one with the smartest, most efficient business model. They're not trying to beat NVIDIA at their own game. They're changing the rules of the game itself. And from an investor's point of view, that makes this one of the most fascinating stories in tech to watch. That's The Explainer.